Okay, so I'm here to talk to you guys about drills, training, and labbing. And this is sort of talking about how to practice skills in Heroes of the Storm. You'll hear often a lot like, oh yeah, I need to like work on this specific mechanic, or I need to like get good at this one hero, or like figure out how this interaction works. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the practice tools that we have at our disposal to do that. Oh my god, what is happening? Okay, we're good. So a little bit about who I am. Starcaller. I play a lot of Samuro, as people know me for. I wrote a guide on it. I previously played in Heroes of the Dorm on Northeastern University's team. I won Heroes Landers Div 1 and then promptly stopped playing competitive for some reason. I terrorize NA Storm League and by playing offlane, usually by just picking Samuro. And I'm going to be the flex player on the team Oxygen Not Included for Nexomania this coming season. So I'm going to talk to you guys about drilling first. I'm going to do these in order. So I'm going to start with drilling and then talk about labbing. So you'd be sitting there like, Starcaller, what's drilling? You know, I know that this is oh my god, what is happening to my screen? Do you guys see that stuttering? Or is that just on my end? Oh, well, I'll assume it's just on my end. So you might be saying, this is a drill. I don't understand how this is going to help me get good at HOTS. What's the deal? And to that, I'm going to respond with a very lengthy, annoying quote. I'm going to restart the presentation. See if that fixes that. So drills is the fundamental core skill of all skill training. Each sport has its own set of drills for development of skills required. Drills essentially provide the frequent repetition of a skill that is required for the athlete to progress through the stages of skill acquisition towards autonomous skill mastery. You might be sitting there like, what does that mean? I don't understand. And basically, what it means is that if you have your brain and you practice Ancient Spear a bunch on Sonya, then you get good at Sonya. And so it's that repetition of small, simple tasks that helps you get better at larger tasks. So you can think about soccer. You might do drills by just like, kicking a ball into a goal multiple times and practicing your shooting angles. Basketball, here's an example of like a full diagram where you pass to a coach, receive the returning pass, finish the layup, and you just do this simple exercise like over and over again, and it helps you get better. And you've done sports while you were in school, you've probably done drills before. Every sport has them, even like I did cross country and we had drills. And the same thing applies. What do you say?
It's the base of martial arts.
Oh, repetition. Yeah. Huge in martial arts. And the same thing applies, like a lot of people don't think about it, but it applies to esports too. So like Heroes of the Storm, League, etc. And it's a really useful tool for getting good at mechanical skills. So why do we need to or want to do drills in any capacity? So for this, I'm actually going to pull in an anecdote from my good friend Mockery, who I talked to before making this. And the basic reason why is because there are certain mechanical skills that might not even come up multiple times per game. Maybe it'll come up once a game, but can be a game-winning play. And it's really important to be good at and be good at being able to do that to make a difference in your game. So like the example that he gave me was on Tracer. He drilled and practiced using Get Stuffed, the Tracer level 20 that makes you do a knockback on melee if someone has Pulse Bomb on them. And because he's drilled that a lot, when he goes into his Storm League games or his NGS games, he's able to reliably pull off Get Stuffed plays, even though they only happen after level 20, and sometimes win the game off of being able to correctly use that talent. And if he hadn't done those drills and hadn't practiced the ability in a vacuum, looking at its different facets and everything, then his only practice would be in games that go to level 20, and that's not really enough practice to get good at the skill. So what do we want in a drill? A feature of a good drill is that they're short, they're repetitive, they give you instant feedback of some variety, they scale well, and they're within something called the zone of proximal development. And that's a very fancy way of basically saying that you want them to be something that you can pull off in practice fairly easily. It isn't too difficult for you, but it isn't like superly boring easy. And the reason for this is that when we're learning, the skills that we learn, our brain internalizes them the best when it's something that we can do with just a little bit of guidance or a little bit of help, some sort of like scaffolding to support you. but something that isn't totally either completely known or completely unknown. So you do these little mechanical exercises to kind of train you in a controlled environment so that when you're in an uncontrolled environment, like a Storm League game, you can pull them off because you've practiced them and drilled them so much. And I'm also going to put a definition of scaffolding here. I do not know what's up with the visual bugs on this. I'm so sorry. Scaffolding consists of basically you give small supports to what you practice, and eventually you pull them away one by one. So that kind of goes into how we design drills. We create a goal, so something that we want to learn. We break it down into parts, and for each part, we figure out what we want to do in practice but can't do in game. Figure out how to scale the part in difficulty as we improve, and for each of those, I guess, increments of that scale, we design a drill. So, and then we repeat it over and over again until we get better at it. Because, like I said before, drills, we want them to be repetitive and give us instant feedback. Because that way our brain learns. So, I'm going to give an example here. If Google Slides ever cooperates. Excellent. Okay. So, the example I'm going to give is for a hero that I play quite a bit. Eastern themed hero uses a curved sword. You guys can probably guess what hero I'm going to talk about. That's right. It's Genji. And specifically, if Google Slides ever stops glitching out, I'm going to talk about Shingon. So Shingon, if you guys don't know, I put it on the screen. It's a level 13 talent, and it makes it so that if Genji hits all 3 of his shurikens, he does a bunch of extra damage. And this is the go-to pick talent on Genji. It's what gives him all of his burst damage, and it also gives him a ton of siege damage and a ton of boss control. So it's really important to be able to be good at Shingon if you're going to be a good Genji player. But it's kind of hard to do, right? You're a super mobile character, and sometimes characters have small hitboxes, and you're trying to land all 3 shurikens, which is, really tight. So it's a good example of something that you might want to design a drill for. So we have our goal. Our goal, get better at hitting Shingons. And we can break this down into parts. So we start off by just sitting next to a target dummy here and saying, okay, I'm going to practice just hitting all 3 shurikens on the stationary target dummy until I can do that reliably. Maybe I move my cursor around and just make sure that I can hit all 3 shurikens. Seems pretty easy at first, but it's something that is really controlled and simple. And then I might layer it and go, okay, now I'm going to spin around the target dummy in a circle. I'm going to move around it and continually try to hit Shingons as I'm moving. And then we might layer it again and say, okay, this time I'm going to Swift Strike from far away and try to land in a position where I can immediately Shingon. And I'm going to keep drilling Swift Strike Shingon, Swift Strike Shingon. And by doing that, I'm going to practice a real game scenario doing that. And finally, I might look at practicing on the AI Arthas. And you'll notice my health is low here because it took me a while to get the screenshot lined up. But that's fine. And by doing that, I practice on a moving target, a target who might be trying to dodge me, depending on how responsive the AI is. And then after that, I might go, okay, well, I've gotten really good at hitting the AI. Now I'm going to pull in a friend and go into try mode or go into a custom game and have them play a hero with a big hitbox and try to avoid me and see if I can land Shingons. And then finally be like, okay, play like Vala or someone with a tiny hitbox. And if I can hit Shingon on that, then I'm like a god at Genji suddenly. And it's just the sort of incremental, I'm advancing the drill to what I feel comfortable doing as I gain skill, rather than if I were to just start off being like, hey, Greffer, go into custom game with me and play Vala, and I'm going to try to hit Shingon on you. That wouldn't do that much for me. It wouldn't help me get better because it's such a high level, hard task that I'm not actually getting any good practice, and I'd probably just get tilted trying. So a general flow for this is we start by doing try mode on a training dummy, then try mode on the AI, and then custom game with a friend. That's sort of how I design a lot of my drills. If you look in the Samuro guide I wrote out some drills for Illusion Master, and this was the kind of flow of a lot of them. So these are just some examples of hero abilities that you might want to drill. So Genji Shingon I talked about in detail. I helped someone earlier design drills for Sonya landing her Ancient Spear from different angles because a lot of players have trouble when they're first starting out the character. Samuro's Illusion Master has a lot of drills to get better at controlling it. Tracer body blocking, Tracer gets stuffed, landing maze ice wall, and just like many more. I think every character has something that can be drilled. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about labbing, and then I'll stop for questions. So once again, you might be sitting there like, Starcaller, I know what a lab is. This is a lab. How does this help me get better at HOTS? I don't understand. And basically, what labbing is in the context of games is you have something that you want to get a better feel for. So it might be like an offlane matchup, some sort of interaction between your heroes. You want to check how good the numbers on something are. And maybe you've done the math on it and you have a theoretical understanding of what should be good or bad, but you really want to see how it feels. And so that's where you can kind of do labbing. So you identify the conditions for the thing you're trying to test. You hit up a friend, and then you test it. So you might be sitting there thinking, I wonder how Samuro versus New Stitches is going to go. So you pull out your phone and you find someone named after a Yu-Gi-Oh character and you hit them up and see if they're willing to help you test things. And when you're labbing things, a really good resource is the sandbox maps that you might have seen some people do. So you go to play, custom games, and Volskaya and Cursed are the only two maps that have a sandbox, sadly. But by going in there, you get control of cheats, which lets you do things like setting your level to specific interactions, or resetting your talents when you need to, resetting HP. And so it's a really good resource for labbing things. When you don't have access to a sandbox, what I've done in the past is I've gotten other people to join who aren't part of the matchup that I'm trying to lab and just told them, okay, go play like Lost Vikings or something and AFK soak the entire game so that we can simulate our teams getting experience at a normal rate so we can see like how certain timings work out. So the reason why we want to lab things is because it's an resettable environment, it's a controlled environment, it's really low pressure, and you can focus on very specific things without having the cost of like, okay, I wanted to see if I can limit test this, but I'm going to lose, Storm League points and tilt my entire team by limit testing. So I've kind of like touched on this, but it's really good for if you're learning the offlane role, practicing certain matchups. Like you want to see like, okay, can I beat Sonya on point on Braxis as this character? And identifying, okay, like maybe I can, but I need to wait for them to use this specific ability, or I need to time this differently. And you can kind of identify what errors you're having so that when you go into a real game, it's really easy to reapply those things or see like, oh, this character beats this character, etc. And in the current meta of oops all offlanes, it's really good to know your offline matchups and be good at offlane. So yeah. So now I'm going to pause for Q&A, and then I'm going to look at doing some in-game demos. So any questions so far?
What were some of the drills you ran on Samuro when you were learning them?
So a lot of the drills that I ran on Samuro were for learning Illusion Master specifically. So that would look like basically I'd start off by moving into the tri-mode dummies, and I would press Q and move one clone away instantly. That's like the most basic one. And then I would advance that by, okay, I'm going to move one clone away and also move the other clone to hit a further target. And then the third stage of that is like, okay, I'm going to move one clone away and then have the other clone hit another target and then switch targets with that clone every crit and keep doing that and keep rotating. And so that's sort of the kind of thing of like, continually adding complexity until you get good at something. And then Blackstorm came up with this crazy drill where you try to take the boss with a clone while you're hitting target dummies, and it's like insane. But yeah, that's the basic idea. So
when drilling an ability specifically, if it's hard to hit but spammable, do you think you should include the fact that you might clip your autos first and foremost to just not get in a bad habit of clipping them, or do you think you should focus on just hitting the ability?
I think you should start off by just trying to hit the ability, and then you can think about it more in context. Like it's once again adding things over time. So you start by just saying, in vacuum, I'm a Sonya whose only button on my entire keyboard is Q. I want to get good at pressing Q. And then you can say, okay, when do I actually want to use Q? And practice the situations where that applies.
So step by step.
Yeah, step by step, exactly. For the question in chat from LK, is there a way to identify what drills a certain hero needs? What you really want to look for is abilities that require mechanical precision. So like skill shots are really good examples. Things that you need to micromanage are good examples. But it's not always abilities even. It could be like just even mechanical plays. Like I mentioned, Mockery was showing me drills for tracer body blocking. So it could be like things like that, like positioning correctly. So let me change windows here real quick.
That's a good question.
How would you design a lab for something like body blocking, dodging, or evading? So for that definitely requires another player. What I would probably do is go into Sandbox Skya because it has a really open area on the control point, and have someone else be there with me. I'd probably have them start as a character of a big hitbox because that's easier to body box, like an Asmodan or a Deathwing or something. And if I'm doing body blocking, what I'd probably do is tell them to just move in a predictable direction and then try to walk in front of them and prevent them from reaching that point. And then I might say, okay, now try to dodge around me, and I'm going to try to predict where you're going to move. And, you can kind of layer it like that. For dodging and evading, you might tell someone, okay, I want to dodge Vala's Q, let's say. Shoot your Q, and I'm going to try to dodge it. And you sort of just like do these really basic, like this would never happen in a real game because it's so simple things, so that you can eventually get to the point where you're practicing a realistic skill. So I'm going to go into either a try mode or a custom. Is there any specific skill that people want to see shown off? Like, I guess name an ability and I can try to like demo like creating a drill for it or creating a lab for it. And like what my thought process would be approaching that ability. Orphea Q. Okay, so I'm going to start off in try mode. And you guys can see the stream okay, right? It's Orphea, there she is.
Yeah, looks good.
Unfortunately, have selected Orphea default skin. Really tragic. So for practicing hitting Q, I'm going to start off by just turning off allied heroes and minions, and turn off the AI Arthas so he doesn't take my fort while I'm hitting the training dummies. Okay, so just really simple situation here. Hitting Orphea's Q and move doesn't actually require my talents at all, so I can be at level 1. But if you're practicing a certain talent, you might want to, set your level. And opening set level at all, even if you don't change anything, teleports you back to the Hall of Storms and resets your talents, so be careful. So I might start by just sitting here and saying, I'm going to practice just landing Q. And then moving. Landing Q, moving. And I'm standing still, so I'm always going to be hitting it. And I go, okay, well, I've got this down pretty hard, so I'm going to try to spin in a circle.
I'll keep going.
And doing that. And you're noticing that I'm also auto-attacking, right? Because that's a habit that I've gotten into. Maybe I should mention that, is that Orphea, because of how Chaos works, you always want to attack between abilities. So I might go move auto as my no combo. Maybe I go, and see I messed that up, so. Cooldowns. Maybe I practice a full combo, things like that. And maybe eventually I'd go, okay, well, I want to practice on a moving target. I'm going to turn on AI. Let's go like Asmodan, I guess. I don't like doing it on Arthas personally because he has the attack speed slow and that messes up certain rhythms of characters. Maybe that's just a holdover habit for me playing Samuro, but I like using other characters besides Arthas. So I'm just practicing hitting Q on him. So there I missed. It's a little unfortunate because he's killing me, but we can mend that.
First blood.
And so that would be what kind of like the intro drills would look like, is just starting by doing the really basic skill, and then advancing to doing the AI. I can show some of the Samura ones just because that was mentioned earlier. And if you can't tell, I like this character. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Going to turn off my allied hero. Going to turn off the enemy hero. Turn off minions. For Samuro, if we're practicing the Illusion Master, I'm going to go to level 10.
Choose a talent.
So I'd go probably an Illusion Master build. So let's say
Choose a
Blade,
talent.
Reflection, Burning
talent.
Blade, Illusion Master.
Choose a talent.
And so, really simple. I'm just going to start off by Q and moving my 3 clone back. I don't really care what these 2 bodies do. But, you know, just trying to get that habit. Walk the clone into tower so it dies. I do it again.
I see wisdom in this.
And the reason why I want to practice that, if just for context, is because with Illusion Master, you can think of your clones as like warp points more than things that are trying to hit heroes. So that's like a safety clone, right? If I'm in the middle of a fight, I want to have a point to escape to by swapping with image transmission. So now I might advance it and go, okay, 3 out, 2 forward. So now I have 2 swap points. And I might go, okay. Okay. That's like, well, you know, having it hit something.
Agree.
And I might finally go. Next stage.
Taste my blade.
And if I'm like feeling really spicy, and so it's sort of just like an example of like how that drill would develop. In terms of body blocking, Greffer, would I be able to get your assistance?
Yeah, I can pop in for a second. As soon as I stop being European.
So just navigating sandboxes while I'm here. So doesn't really matter what the lobby mode is on. You probably want on standard, so you can select a character. I usually turn game privacy off so it doesn't appear in my match history, because usually if you leave a custom game in the middle of it, it'll register as a loss, and having a bunch of red in my match history from labbing things is kind of sad. And that way also people can't see what I'm labbing if I'm like on a competitive team, for instance. Invite Greffer Blue in. So let's say, for instance, that I'm trying to practice Tracer. So maybe just like play Asmodan for now, just as a big character.
Cheers, love! The cavalry's here!
Prepare for
I have the extremely buggy motorcycle mount, where she doesn't hold any of the handlebars when she rides. It's great. So here, you can see the cheats panel, and this is kind of will be a small guide for navigating customs. Some important things to note is setting the game speed to faster at the very beginning is nice, because that way, you know, the timer goes down and actual game can start sooner, and you can set it back to normal afterwards.
4, 3, 2, 1. Now we fight.
You have move here, which will teleport you to the center of your camera. I'm going to share cheats with Greffer so that he can control his own things if he needs. We can set level in this menu, and that's useful if you're trying to test talents or testing certain level interactions. I can toggle minions on or off. Usually if I'm drilling something mechanical like this, like body blocking, I'll just disable Fog of War so I can always see. But maybe, I don't want to do that. So I'm practicing body blocking. We're going to set damage taken to 0 so that he doesn't actually die from Tracer.
Take this.
So, yeah, so let's see. What is my hotkey for force move? H. Okay. So we're gonna go down to the point here. And just try to walk back to your gate. So here, I'm just having him move in a really predictable pattern, and I'm just trying to block him from getting in. Because I have damage taken really low, the towers aren't gonna kill me. So if that was a real game, maybe my team could have rotated, or I would have gotten a pulse bomb off on him or something like that. Just from, blocking him.
Wait for it.
I'm not even doing it that great. Like, if Mockery were here, that would be a lot smoother. But, it's just kind of like trying to get him in. And that'll be something that'd be harder if, for instance, he were playing, Vala or Genji or another Tracer, where,
Understood.
Yeah. That's just an example of how to navigate the custom with that. And so the reason why stuff like that is really good and why it's important and why I recommend it is because a lot of players don't do that. Like if you look at NGS teams or you look at people trying to get into comp, they'll just say okay, I'm going to practice Stormlink, and maybe they go the extra mile and go, I'm going to rewatch all of my replays and see what I could have done better. But a lot of the times when you're on a competitive team, see, I have to replay this game now. If you're on a competitive team or something, a lot of times your practice is going to be things like, playing ranked with your teammates or doing, just a warm-up quick match or ARAM or something, and not a lot of this kind of stuff. And when I was on my Heroes of the Dorm team, the things that I found the most helpful were practicing the 1v1 offlane matchups or doing something like the first 2 minutes drill, which is something that Cav and Mockery taught me about, which is where you get all 5 of your teammates, you load into a game, and you practice getting the macro for the first 2 minutes of the game down rock solid. You do it for 2 minutes, and you go back and watch the VOD, see where you made mistakes, and then do it again. And that fits the drill mentality of doing something that is quick and repeatable and small in scale until you can improve at it. So if I were on a 5-person team, I could load into Volskaya and say, okay, we're going to take the camp at exactly 1 minute. The offlaner's not going to miss any waves. And then we go back and say, okay, we missed one top wave. We're going to go back and do it again and try to fix that. And then you eventually go into your NGS match and you're like, oh, we got the map that we drilled on really hard. We're never going to lose a game on this map because we've identified the problems and have a robotic understanding of where we need to be when. So it can also be good for macro in that case. I'm going to show off a Kerrigan example because Mindhawk asked me to, even though he's not here. But if in case he watches the recording, I don't want to make bad on my promise.
Looking forward to it.
So let's say that I'm trying to practice Kerrigan combo. So if you watched Mindhawk's speech, one thing that he said is that you want to have your cursor in between where you're comboing. So I might practice just pressing W. And it might seem really simple because, I'm not actually fully comboing and I'm not even hitting the target dummy, but I'm just practicing getting the position down. So I can turn on toggle cooldowns and just practice doing that. Practice moving and just hitting the W in the right spot. Maybe I practice right-clicking towards the target and I'm positioning it. And then I might say, okay, I'm going to practice the other part of that now. practice Eing for max range. And I can put two of them together. And it leashes right as I do that. And so you can see there that I identified the goal. I want to practice my Kerrigan combos. I broke it down into parts. I want to practice landing my W and landing my E. I practiced each part in a controlled environment, and I'm slowly being able to scale them up over time. So now I might practice, you know, I'm going to queue onto this target dummy, and then I'm going to combo the far one over here. Okay. And they reset randomly, so that's kind of unfortunate. But so that may be something that you would drill on Kerrigan. And then eventually I can go, okay, I've gotten really comfortable with just doing this as like a snap reaction. Maybe I can like time it and be like, I don't need much setup. I don't need to pay attention to it really. Like it's not even fully on my screen. I was expecting it to reset, I'm going to be honest. But, yeah, so now I might turn on the AI. Say, let's turn on Arthas, it's fine. Mudhawk was mentioning that it's really hard to hit the AI because they do weird things like either stand still or like dodge like their computers because they are. And if anyone has ever seen the HTC game where AI Muradin played, you'll know that the AI is insane. Yeah. You might be wondering why I turn on minions. There's two reasons for that. One, so that I have a place to queue to. And two, the AI actually won't step out unless you have minions on, which is kind of funny. This is why I kind of don't like Arthas, because I'm like slowed here. So here I'm just practicing the combos. Maybe it would be better if I were to just practice landing a W between me and the Arthas. Like where I would combo. I mean, he's walking into it because it's the AI, but you know, it's whatever.
What's up with all these bragging princes anyway?
Maybe I practice, you know, Ying for max range. So you can just kind of like break down the skill into smaller skills. So there I misplaced the combo, see? I didn't put it in between us. Okay, I'm going to turn in someone else. What did I do before? Let's do like Greymane. Greymane's probably good because he's going to be ranged most of the time, so maybe in between us, he stepped forward, so now I know, okay, I need to do like slightly forward. Now I hit combo.
Your enemies.
So that time I missed my E, so that might be something that I practice instead. Is saying, okay, just practice hitting the E. Maybe the target's going to try to move when I hit E. He's gonna kill me. That's unfortunate, but you know. So there's no HP reset. I don't know how to open up the dev cheats like Mindhawk. So here we are. Sorry, I missed combo, but I hit the E, and that's what I'm trying to practice.
Show no mercy.
So now, if anyone knows me, they know I'm not a great Kerrigan. But now that I've practiced that, I can probably go into a game, like a quick match or something, and actually land combos if I try to, because I've gotten that warm-up. And like I'll sometimes even play characters that I already play, like I'm still going to try mode of Samuro, and just do that warm-up before a game so that when I, like, it's fresh in my brain, and I've done the learning that day. So it's good both for initial learning and also for later practice. Are there any specific heroes based on their hitbox/mobility that you suggest drilling against? Yeah, so I think Asmodan and Deathwing have the biggest hitboxes. I could be wrong about that. I don't know if there's any bigger ones. But I recommend those characters for starting out because it's really easy to hit abilities on both of them. Deathwing is a little bit wonkier because he's unstoppable, obviously. So if you're practicing, like, say, a Kerrigan combo, he won't actually get pulled. And other characters like that sometimes have reliance that CC breaks. In terms of progression, Tracer is like really hard to hit with anything. So like if you're wanting to harm yourself mentally, you can practice on that. Vala is a really good one for practicing on small hitboxes because her hitbox is small. She has one mobility ability, so you can start by saying, okay, Vala just walk in a straight line, and then Vala use E as two things. So like when I was coaching someone on Sonya, I played Vala, and I said, okay, just try to hit me, and I walked in a straight line, and then I started vaulting and dodging, and they had to predict where I was going to vault. So that's probably who I'd recommend for small hitbox practicing. I'm trying to think of who else is mobile. It's like Genji, good mobile character. Proteus with Worker Rush is surprisingly hard to hit. And just things like that. Is Verse AI a valid environment for drills? If so, what difficulty would you recommend? So the issue with Verse AI and drilling is that, like I said before, drills are short and repeatable, and you get instant feedback, right? So if you do Verse AI, the issue with it is that you're in the full game, right? It's going to take like 20 minutes or something. And if you get into an EXP farm group, it's going to take like 40 minutes, and they'll be mad at you if you try to end the game early. And so when you're practicing a skill, you go and you, like, let's say I'm playing Kerrigan in a Verse AI game, and I might like go to try to land a combo, and I go, oh, I missed my combo, I fucked it up. And the issue there is that now I can't reset the conditions and try again. I have to wait until another opportunity presents itself to try to Kerrigan combo again, right? Like I need to wait for that. Maybe it would be like I'm trying to test, doing a certain combo that requires level 4 or like pre-level 7 or something. And then I hit level 7 and it's like, oh, well, I guess I can no longer drill that in this game. And so I don't really recommend playing a Verse AI game to drill. Maybe it would be the next step in practice if you're trying to say, okay, I've drilled and I want to see how much I've improved. So, taking it out of the drill into a real game scenario. Maybe Verse AI is good for that. But also, as previously mentioned, the AI are either really good at dodging things or don't move like real people and stand still when they probably should be moving. And so it kind of builds bad habits if you're practicing too much on the AI. Like, you'll either get used to them standing still, and then when players move, you'll not be able to predict them, or they will crazily dodge and land every ability. Like, I don't think I've ever seen AI Ana miss a sleep dart. So things like that.
Same thing might happen with real players if you play in really low leagues or ranks, because some people don't actually know yet how to dodge. I mean, I'm one of those, so I know for my own experience. So yeah, maybe you can get some issue if trying to actually hit stuff because people don't dodge very much on low ranks.
Yeah, but you still can kind of get a feel for like, okay, I know that I play against these bronze or silver players, and I know that they are scared of visibility but not visibility, and I know that they tend to move at these intervals. Like, you kind of get a feel for it after playing so many games, right? Of like what they'll try to dodge and what they'll just stand still for. Maybe like if you're playing a game against a player, you can see that individual player, like, okay, this person is stutter stepping or this person is standing still. And that kind of informs you to know how to position your abilities. And Verse AI, it's kind of just random nonsense and doesn't translate well against real players. So that's all I've got planned. I was mostly just planning to go over certain characters for you guys. If you wanted to see specific drills, you can do, like, for instance, Maev Q. You could practice standing a far away and hitting doubles or triples with Fan of Knives so you can get resets. That's something that I'm very bad at that I need practice on. Mentioned Sonya a couple of times. So just, I think every character in the game has something that can be drilled, and I think it's really good to practice those kinds of drills. So that's the main point of what I'm talking about here. How about someone like Li Ming, who has her abilities that get blocked by the waves? Ooh, interesting. Okay, so...
You want to move to Nuga, question mark?
What? What was that?
I'm not
Sorry, I missed it.
Shoot. I'm not on touch to talk. I'm sorry.
All good, all good. So, let's see. So like before, start in try mode. So let's say identify our goal or problem. Our goal is we want to practice hitting Li Ming combos and positioning such that our combo does not get stopped by a wave. So break it down. We want to start by just practicing hitting abilities, regardless of the wave, and then we can add the complexity of the wave later.
Nicely
Like
done.
Aether Walker. Because I'm toggling short cooldowns, I don't think I need any talents. The only thing that would like affect the combo rate would be Triumvirate, but you know, if we're not practicing, so we need level 10, I guess, for practicing for wave 4.
Choose a talent. Choose a talent. Choose a talent.
Maybe we want to practice with Illusionist.
Choose a talent.
So I'm kind of identifying like
talent.
what levels I actually
Choose a
need to
talent.
practice the skill that I want to practice.
Choose a talent.
Right?
Grows.
You know, you can make an argument that Mirror Ball would be harder to hit. But...
Why not?
So I'm going to practice just standing here and hitting a full range combo.
I think I regret this. Is enough.
Did I hit Calamity there? Couldn't tell. Okay, so I'm doing quite a bit of damage. And so you practice that for a while, and you go, okay, like maybe I'm going to try to move and just snap hit a combo. So I missed my Calamity there, right?
Fine. Your grave awaits.
So now I'm going to start down here, and I'm going to say, I want to hit the far back target on me, right? So I'm going to try to be like that. And one of my missiles got lost. That orb was kind of sus, but you know. Okay, better. Maybe I can do something fancy, like... That didn't work. But, you know, maybe that's an idea of something that I could try to practice, is pushing targets out of the way with Wave of Force.
Should I even be here?
And I might go, okay, now I'm ready to try on the Arvis. Who is going to be a Chen today?
Didn't see this coming, did you?
He's probably going to stand in the wave, and it's going to be really annoying. I'm going to turn off toggle cooldowns, because actually a good metric of success to see if I hit him is Triumvirate resets. Try to hit him. He's running at me. It's a little unfortunate for practice. So I'm going to run into his wave. Did I miss missiles? Would be fast.
Stay away.
He's just running me down.
Then.
It's like a real player wouldn't dodge like that, probably. Because I teleported and he like snapped changed positions to follow my teleport.
Almost not worth
You hear him fighting around the wave.
Blood.
And I kill him. And I think this is a good example of one that would be good to have someone go into a custom with you in practice. So you can just say like stand in the wave or like move back and forth. Like you can have them like move like this on their wave, right? And you just try to hit them. Li Ming is a little bit of a weird character to do this with though, I feel like, because a lot of the time when you're doing your combo, you're not going to be doing it dry like this, right? Like you're going to be trying to have your tank set up with CC. So you want to have them stun or slow so that way you can simulate as if it were a stationary target, right? You want this to be the situation that your real game goes in, which is possible if they're stunned permanently. So that's why Li Ming Diablo is played a lot, because flip into Li Ming combo is like guaranteed. It's what we call true combo for games.
Stay away.
You've impressed me, hero.
When you say AI, do you mean verse AI or like the AI in the try mode? Yeah, you can, but I definitely recommend finding like a friend or a teammate to come over. So I'll read out the question, by the way, for the recording. In that case, would you use AI to help drill and just follow up, like AI Diablo, and wait for the flip in a sandbox? So I think the issue with that is that it's really variable. You don't know when Diablo is going to combo. You don't know if he's going to do a combo correctly. And if you're doing it with a teammate or a friend, you have the added benefit of practicing communication, right? So you can say like, okay, call when you're flipping, do shadow charge into flip, and I'm going to do combo off of your flip. And you practice that timing for your own skill as well as practicing that communication aspect. Usually with drills, you want to practice one thing at a time. You isolate one specific thing to practice and get skill on. But with communication, it's good to always practice that, I think. Yeah, like usually you don't want to duo drill things, but I think with communication, there's kind of an exception where it's good to practice that. No problem. And what do you do, for example, when you want to practice engages with Valyria or heroes that are similar, those that require more people? What do you mean by that? Like, you're talking about, like, if you're playing Valyria and there's, like, an enemy team and how to engage into them?
Yeah, I mean, for example, when is a good timing of engages? I mean, it's like, when is a good time to engage? When do you have to wait? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I think...
I don't know if you've read it, but MB has a really good guide on Valyria that actually explains when you do need to be looking for engage versus skirmishes versus team fights.
Yep.
Yeah.
So in terms of practicing that, though, if you've read it, I think that would be something that would fall more into labbing than drilling. So you might go into try mode and practice doing the engage mechanically on a dummy, or practice doing the engage mechanically on the Arvis or something, so you can get that mechanical button pressing down. But to actually get the game sense of when you should do it and what are the situations, you might want to test that in a custom where you just say, okay, I'm going to try at this situation and see if it works. And it either does or it doesn't. You can go, okay, maybe I need to wait for some other situation. So that'd be something that you want to grab people for and just kind of see what works and what doesn't to get a feel for it, which would be labbing.
Okay. Okay.
So I think that's all I got prepped here. We've got about 3 minutes left, but I think I'm going to stop the recording early there. Are there any final questions before I close off the session? Going once.
Anything? I was gonna say, there's like one thing you would prefer someone to like kind of get down for just a general hero. What would you recommend? Like something that's just like simple but effective.
I think it
Like,
depends.
Simmer was really good, but like,
I think it depends what hero you're trying to learn, right? So like when I mentioned that every character has something like that, you want to identify what skills either are hard on the character or that you have trouble with, so that you can add that hero to your pool. So like you're a tank player and you go, I'm just gonna pick one at random. I want to practice doing Diablo combos. So you might go into a custom game and practice wall banging. Bam, your tank is better. You're an offlane player. You want to practice landing Leo's spooky hand. So you walk in a circle and try to practice Leo's spooky hand. And I think that there's something like that for every character where there's some sort of mechanical skill that you can work on and practice in a drill. So I think the real skill isn't knowing how to drill something, but it's identifying what you need to drill. And so I'd recommend thinking about your characters in those terms of going, what is the mechanical limitation that I have on this character?
Good example of that is there were a lot of Sonya's struggling into the Leoric matchup until they figure it out and drilled that you can actually just spin in the middle of Leoric's hitbox and he cannot W you. And then immediately the Leoric magic became 400 times easier because he could not press W on you.
So to explain that one in a little more detail, Sonya's Whirlwind makes her pass through other units. And Leo's W, which is, the spooky hand, the Drain Hope, it actually starts outside of his hitbox. So like if he were, top-down view, it would start like right out here, if you can see my cursor. So if Sonya is spinning inside of Leoric's hitbox, he actually can't land his W, which is really funny. That's just like a little tech for you guys to know about.
As an example, though, other things you could drill on certain heroes, we mentioned a couple times, but Marker is a huge proponent of practicing body blocking on Tracer. Any hero that can really attack while moving has such a huge advantage being able to also body block.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a massive advantage. Combo-based heroes like Kerrigan, good example. A lot of people practice Stukov combos.
Mhm.
Heavy
The
practice
root
it for quite a
combo
long time. Yep.
for virulent reaction. Right, this one? Yeah.
Just practice it from different angles and to get a feel of whenever you want to hit it. A lot of things, though, that seem like you need to be mechanically godlike to hit them, 99% of the time, also keep in mind that you don't always have to hit them dry. You could just use things as follow-up. Mentioned in the Minehawk lecture he did earlier was that he can a lot of times in competitive he'll just wait to have one of his teammates enable him to do his combo. Well, MB and her Valyra guide that was mentioned
I'm
earlier,
here to help.
the recommendation they give is to just wait, and if you're in a full 5v5 team fight, just wait for your tank to engage, and then you can do your combo as follow-up.
Yep.
Skirmishes and team fights operate differently. A skirmish, you can kind of facilitate your own kills, but if you're in a team fight, it's usually better to have the person with the much easier engage go first, and then you can hit your more mechanically intensive damage afterwards, or CC or whatever.
Yeah. So, like Creffer was saying, a lot of times characters have abilities that other people on your team help you enable. So, like I was mentioning Li Ming's combo earlier. And so, when you're drilling things, you might want to keep that in mind and practice like hitting something off a stun or hitting a stationary target as like knowing that it will
Variant Ring
probably
is
be
a good
enabled.
example of that.
Oh yeah.
Taunt Dalbanner into just hitting a juicy combo, and suddenly something just melts.
Oh yeah. That's a very mean combo.
That's what we did a lot of times with Sylvanas, as we do taunt and MC with Dalbanner. Stuff would just melt. It's a really reliable way to get it out. It's a short cooldown, so I mean you can throw it out, but having it guaranteed is nice.
Yeah, I think just following up on that, like a lot of times you think about a character and you're like, oh, like someone would ask you like, oh, do you play Stukov? And you go, no, he's too hard. Like I don't know how to land the root combo. I'm bad at it. And if you make that connection and go, wait, this is something that I think I'm not good at that's able to be practiced, then suddenly you have the agency to be able to go, I'm going to go drill this. And then you can get good at landing your virulent reaction combos, or like, oh, I don't play Samuro because I'm bad at using Illusion Master. Bam, you have a way to practice now and go into try mode and like spend like an hour or two like working on that skill, and suddenly you can become really good at it. And so that's kind of the value of drills here, is adding characters to your pool and practicing skills that you have trouble with. I'm going to give Ramza a chance to type here. What do you do, for example, when you want to practice engages with Valyria or heroes that are similar? Oh, no, I already answered that. Okay. When you start drilling, how many heroes are too many? Okay, so that's an interesting question. I think it depends on your role, largely. But many times, Graf, do you know what the average like hero pool is of a CCL player? Like how many characters they have? Because it's a lot smaller than people think. What characters people think are like tournament viable for their role?
It depends on the role, right? So the tank roster, usually you should have most of the tank roster down. The support roster kind of works the
like
same
not
way.
many of
But if you're
them.
playing, yeah, but if you're playing like any of the other three, if you're playing like flex, DPS, or offlane,
There's
then
a
you
lot
could
of them.
have like yeah, you could have like a roster of 8. And I think it'd be fine. That's for like that's competitive though, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean you only have to have that. There were people who primarily played only like 3 heroes at an optimal level, but then the other heroes they didn't play as well. They just enabled it with the team comp the team comp making it super easy for them to play that hero.
Yeah, I think
that they weren't as good at.
I think around 5 is probably good, Ramza, because you think about it like this. Think about what your goals are. So if you're trying to play competitive, you want to be able to have an answer to certain situations. So like if I'm an offlane player, I want to have someone that can double soak like Lyric or Malthael. And I also want to have someone that's good at point control duels like Samuro. And you want to just make sure you have all your boxes checked. I want to have someone that counters Sonya. Well, good luck with that. Things like that. And if you're in a Storm League contest, you might think, I want to be able to have a character that won't be picked and won't be banned. So I want to have like at least 3 characters, right? Because let's say like 2 of the bans get used on offlane, which like probably more will, but you want to have a big enough pool that your pool won't get banned out or removed, or all your counters are picked and you're just like, oh no. So I guess the best answer to that question is think about what you need your pool size for and what it enables you to do. And then you don't need more than that, right? Like I don't need to play like 20 offlaners because I already have characters that are good at the things I need them to be good at.
Yeah, and the example of offlaners, like you don't need to pop off on every time. If your team comp is enabled with this offlaner, you could literally just sit there and freeze, and that's perfectly fine. And then wait till the TF and pop off. It works
Ah,
perfectly,
yes.
perfectly fine.
The great
You don't
offlane
have to.
gameplay of AFKing in lane.
You don't have to be
I
like
love
Frizz and have
Blaze.
like a hero ocean. Oh yeah, like there are some people who have like legitimately a crazy pool of heroes that they can play, and they can play them all really well. But those people probably played the game for like 14 hours a day, practicing in competitive, which no one needs to. If you just want to play casually and have fun, you could just be good at like 3 heroes and think, oh yeah, I'm comfortable with these 3 heroes. If I have to play other heroes, whatever, because sometimes you just have to flex. But if you're good at those 3 heroes, then that's perfectly fine. There are people who play the game competitively who are really only good at 3 heroes.
I had so before I played offlane on my Heroes Lunch team, I had a friend who was our offlane player, and I think 90% of his games were on Arthas. And it was really funny because Arthas was the only character he knew how to play, and he was like a silver player, and the rest of our team was like plat diamond, and so no one would ever think to ban him. And then suddenly one team noticed that we have an 100% win rate with Arthas, and they go, "Wait a second." And they ban Arthas, and suddenly we have to start panicking because this guy's one character. But before that,
Yeah,
it served us really well, right? And he only had
Woodchucks
like
are OP.
basically one character in his pool. So your pool doesn't need to be that big. It just needs to be big enough to do what you need to do with it.
There's a really good example of Oxygen when they missed a scrim day. Its schedules got mixed up, and then they will all went into QM and face nothing but one tricks. And these one tricks out mechanics professional players. Like they legitimately outplayed them massively. These were like Uthers who were just sitting in a bush for like 30 seconds, waiting to pop off their big, Benny double stun into D-Storm combo. Like these insane Illidan's who were just juking around everywhere, and Raiders who were like queuing to interrupt anything that could be interrupt off cooldown. Like these were people who just didn't do anything but played these heroes all day and did nothing but, and they were just mechanically outplaying people who were much more knowledgeable about the game just because they're just doing nothing but playing that character. So obviously you're just going to get really good at them. But
yeah, so
like
basically your heroes a choice for a role and some backups. I think that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
All right, so that is definitely all I have for you guys. I'll stick around if there's anything else you guys want, but I'm going to close the recording and the slides / gameplay. And I think there's going to be a talk by Derivative on Gazlo and by AlphaRack on Alarak happening here in about 3-ish minutes. So if anyone signed up for that. All right. Thanks everyone for coming.